Outpost, and today I want to talk about this article I found that I had a big problem with some of the things in here too when it comes to the rise of Skywalker and some pretty major plot holes, at least in my opinion, and this article seems to think so too. Now, we will be talking about spoilers for the movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, or if you want to avoid them, then I would, click off now. However, a lot of people don't have the same opinion as me when it comes to the rise of Skywalker. You look at this, critics score is still sitting at 57%, audience score at critics is actually at 48%, and all audience is at 76%. So those have pretty much held steady the last couple days. So it does appear that a lot of people genuinely like the rise of Skywalker, especially the audience members. I don't quite see, well, I do see how that can be possible because it does look good and there's a lot of action in it. And I suppose that if that's what you're looking for, then you might go and enjoy this film. Me personally, I didn't. But let's get into what I found to be irritating with it, some of these major plot holes. First one, how did Palpatine survive his death in Return of the Jedi? And I was talking with someone about this on stream, and it's true. Palpatine they just say, hey, he's back. No forewarning. No, this wasn't planned. We know that Palpatine wasn't supposed to come back. We know that Ian McDiarmid talked to JJ, and said, we're thinking about bringing you back. And this wasn't during Force Awakens. This was after The Last Jedi. Let's start with the most obvious question of all. How did Palpatine survive his death? And all many abilities some consider to be unnatural. That's all that they say. That's how he explains the fact that he's not dead. I thought that was ridiculous. Like, what if we had one scene showing how he didn't die? Or 30 seconds explaining how he didn't die, why he didn't die. That would have been nice. Why was Palpatine still growing Snoke in his clone lab? Yes. Supreme Leader Kylo Ren learned that Palpatine was the one responsible for the creation of Snoke, his predecessor and mentor, and the Emperor had been manipulating him all along. The evidence was indisputable because Snoke was either a clone or a genetically engineered creature. At least 2 more Snokes, final order, so why was he growing more Snokes? There we go. Of course, out of universe, the reason was to provide evidence to viewers of Snoke's origin had been finally revealed. Well, it doesn't really, it just is like, hey, look at these Snokes. So I get that. How did Poe lightspeed skip in the Falcon? As early scenes from Poe Dameron proved his piloting skill by performing a lightspeed skip. The fundamental problem is that contradicts all established Star Wars canon. That is a funny line. The fundamental problem, however, is that it contradicts literally everything that came before it. Ships shouldn't be able to jump to hyperspace if they are too close to a gravity well, such as a planet. That's why the Rebel fleet had to flee into space before escaping Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back. There we go. The Force Awakens did confirm it's possible to use a gravity mass to pull you out of hyperspace. Absolutely true, and got that idea straight from the expanded universe. Now, Poe is jumping from world to world without a by your leave defined pseudoscientific law means something. Then there are no stakes. And this breaks rules, for sure. How did the TIE fighters chase the Falcon through hyperspace? Another one that you're like, what? The lightspeed skip scene raised another problem. The TIE fighters successfully pursue the Falcon through multiple hyperspace jumps. The problem is that it directly contradicts one of the main problems in Star Wars Last Jedi, which established that nobody had ever been able to track ships through hyperspace before. What's more, the technology was supposed to be so new that it was only installed in Supremacy. Now it seems the First Order have minimized it and installed it in every one of the TIE fighters, all in the space of a year. And that one, to me, I think that they're actually going to explain that in a different way. I think that they are going to say that the TIE fighters were close enough to the Falcon because most TIE fighters don't even have hyperdrives installed. I think they're going to say that they were close enough to the Falcon they got kind of drawn into a wormhole as they went to hyperspace. That's what I think they're going to say because there's no other logical explanation. How has Luke's lightsaber been repaired? Great question. It looks perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. Rey is shown training in the Force. She's back to using Luke's old lightsaber. Unfortunately, that was destroyed in The Last Jedi when Rey and Kylo Ren tore it apart. It was so badly damaged that Rey would have basically had to rebuild it from scratch, but there's no sign of damage, and at the end of that film suggests she's not yet built her own lightsaber. That's the mark of her becoming a Jedi Knight. The only explanation from an out-of-universe perspective is that J.J. Abrams just chose to ignore this issue. And it's true, right? We see other things being rebuilt. Like we see Kylo rebuilding his mask, and it has marks because it was welded back together. This looks perfectly fine. Not to mention the crystal. There's nothing wrong with the crystal at all. There's just so much. There is so much in this movie that is just happenstance. It just happens to be that way. Be it from who they run into, to the things that they have in their possession, to the MacGuffins, like everything's just so happenstance. Poe Dameron's new backstory just doesn't work. Yes, and there was no reason for it, other than a silly way to introduce Zori Bliss. Star Wars Rise of Skywalker reveals that Poe Dameron used to be a spice runner. Wow. Meaning he used to ship illegal drugs across the galaxy for criminal cartels. This is presumably added to Poe's backstory in order to make him more of a scoundrel, filling the void left by Han Solo's death in Star Wars Force Awakens. The problem is there's never been a hint of this before. Previously, he'd been the son of 2 Resistance fighters, and he became a pilot after his mother's death. He joined the New Republic Defense Fleet and then jumped to the Resistance early on. He was never intended to be a scoundrel, and it probably wasn't wise to turn him into one. True, and there is a lot of backstory in Star Wars canon, in like the Poe Dameron comics and things like that, that goes to support the fact that he was never a spice runner. So it was silly to try to force that on him in a movie that's so full of other stuff. Adding this silly little backstory made no sense. Speaking of no sense, this Sith dagger makes absolutely no sense. The entire Sith dagger arc makes no sense at all. They're just like tearing this apart, and it's hilarious. Rey appears to sense that the knife has a long history, and yet it must just be a couple decades old at most. Given that it was designed to point the way to a chunk of the Death Star that was destroyed in Return of the Jedi. The dagger also only works if you're stood at a very specific spot, and if you assume that the powerful waves of Kifbar are unable to erode metal as time passes. God, that is perfect. It is so stupid. The Sith dagger thing is so dumb. It's such a stupid MacGuffin. And it's right. Because the Wayfinder is implied. It should be implied that the Wayfinder was kept in the Emperor's vault because that's where it was while he was on the Death Star. Right? To me, it's not implied that they put it there after the fact. Why would they put the Wayfinder there after it's already crashed? Makes no sense at all. I also don't know why everything's still working on the Death Star when she goes in there and the doors just open up for her. Doesn't make any sense, but yeah, it's so stupid. Because that is designed, that stupid little thing that comes out is designed to point to a way of wreckage. God, it's so stupid. Why did 3PO know the language of the Sith? 3PO is able to recognize the language of Sith as soon as he sees it, but his core programming means he's unable to translate it. This reads them head to Kijimi in order to find the droid Smith to hack into and remove the core programming. Claims Old Republic has passed legislation that forced protocol droids to be programmed not to translate Sith. But then why do they do that when they believe the Sith were extinct since the time of Darth Bane? Yeah, good point. This one wasn't a huge issue for me. How many stormtroopers are in the First Order? When Rey and her friends arrive on Kijimi, they learn the First Order are in there in force. In fact, they're already going door to door. This strongly implies the First Order doing this literally everywhere across the galaxy. Yes, but that naturally raises the question of just how many stormtroopers and troop ships the First Order have. They have an entire galaxy to cover after all. And it is very true. They make it very clear that this is not some kind of huge galactic empire. They even talk about that in the movies. It's still like a break-off, the First Order is. How many stormtroopers defect? And we thought Finn was special in the fact that he was able to reject his programming. But it seemed like that was a big deal, as though no one ever defected before. But in Rise of Skywalker, Finn learns an entire platoon of stormtroopers have quit in the past, courtesy of Jannah. It raises a question just how efficient First Order's brainwashing processes really are. How did Kylo Ren get off Kef Burr? Kylo Ren continues to track Rey, following her to the oceanic moon of Kef Bir as they duel across the wreckage from the second Death Star. In the end, Rey escapes Kylo Ren by fleeing in his TIE Whisper, leaving him just standing there. And yes, the others, John and the other former stormtroopers were living on Kef Bir needed Finn and Poe in order to leave the planet. That means the only wreckage should be a few wrecked TIE fighters. Even if ones could be repaired, these were Imperial era vehicles, meaning they weren't equipped with hyperdrives. Yes, I don't understand. I don't understand how he gets off there, and I said that as I watched the movie. Like, he just appears, he just parks next to Rey, I suppose, but where did he get it? Where did he get the vehicle? Maybe he force-Skyped himself. How does Luke repair his X-Wing? Exactly, he went there. We're going to start skipping through these because it's taken me forever. How does Luke repair his X-Wing? Convinced she's destined to follow the dark side, Rey destroys what she took to get there. Fortunately, the Force goes to Luke Skywalker, gives her a pep talk, and pulls his X-Wing out of the waters. But how is it still working? In The Last Jedi, it was aged and rusting. And in the visual dictionary, Luke wrecked the craft before dropping it beneath the waves. Damn it. The X-Wing really shouldn't be able to fly at all. So many Last Jedi retcons in this. What's the deal with Palpatine's secret fleet? Emperor's had hidden fleet of Death Star destroyers buried under the ice on the Sith planet of Exegol, which is a strange decision. A tactical genius, Palpatine has chosen to secrete his fleet on a planet so inaccessible that they cannot escape without a single transmission guiding them out, which hardly seems like a wise strategy. Meanwhile, it's unclear whether the Death Star destroyers were constructed out of Exegol or whether they flew out there. Given there's only supposed to be 2 wayfinders to guide people there, the other option seems unfeasible considering the number of ships. God. And the miniaturized Death Star tech does seem pretty bizarre, let's be honest. That is a lot of Kyber crystals, but yeah, whatever. Stop thinking about it. Just consume, guys. And that's what's happening. People are consuming this. How did Babu Frik and Zori Bliss survive? True. They blow up Kijimi. You're supposed to care, but no one does, and they just move on. But it made it even less effective when Babu Frik and Zori Bliss joined the battle against the Death Star destroyers, proving they've gotten off the planet. This is pretty impressive. Given Zori gave Poe Dameron the little captain's pass or captain's chit, whatever it was, the thing that can get them past the blockade. So how in the world were they not destroyed? It makes 0 sense. And didn't Palpatine know about the Force Dyad? Palpatine's always liked to pretend that everything is happening as he's foreseen, but his plans are often so complex. There's a particularly odd example when the Emperor pivots from planning on possessing his granddaughter to instead draining the power of the Force Dyad. The strange thing about this is that he seemed to have no idea about the strength, in spite of the fact that he's claimed Snoke was his puppet all along. Snoke was well aware of the mystical connection and even strengthened it in The Last Jedi. So why does Palpatine not have any idea about it? Again, don't think about it, just consume. It's fun, right? This is a great one. This is a perfect one because at the end, I was so pissed at the end of this movie when this happened. How did the other Jedi manifest in the Force? Rey is on the verge of defeat when she's given unexpected encouragement by the Jedi of ages past. The problem is that Qui-Gon Jinn was supposed to be the first Jedi in generations to learn how to retain his consciousness, and it took him time to figure out how to manifest and train others. That means many of the Jedi who speak in his scene died before Qui-Gon had begun mentoring people. This scene is stunning and effective, but it appears to contradict all previous Star Wars canon. Again, something that we're saying with this. Appears to contradict all previous Star Wars canon. And will probably need to be resolved sometime down the time, or somewhere down the timeline, with another retcon. And it's true, Aayla Secura, Luminara, we didn't see Ahsoka die, so technically you can argue that Ahsoka maybe could have learned it somehow. But still, people like that, why are you plugging them in there? Mace Windu. I suppose in theory, Yoda could have taught Mace Windu at some point. I think that was so distracting for me, and it really took me out when I heard those voices, because they shouldn't be doing. We saw Aayla Secura get gunned down by clones. Why are you putting Aayla Secura in this movie? What great lasting impact did she have that you're deciding to make her a Force ghost? Or a Force voice, at least. But But anyway, that's just some of the things. I thought it was funny to laugh at these plot holes because they are pretty glaring plot holes, in my opinion. It really affects my enjoyment of the. It really affects my enjoyment of the movie. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was laughable, but I am pretty biased. So let me know what you guys think. Did you see this movie? Did you get some of the same reactions to some of these plot holes that I did? I thought it was pretty ridiculous. That's just some of them. There's way more. I haven't even done my full breakdown of it yet, to be honest, because I'm just avoiding it. I don't want to do it. But it'll be out there soon. Let me know what you guys think about this, though. Make sure you leave your comments below. Like, subscribe, share this video, ring the bell for notifications, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching, everyone. And a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.